Gentlemen, hit subscribe to this channel right now. Go to H.A. Goodman's other channel right after this for the upload synopsis of this live stream. To my super chat, thank you. To the members, if you want to become a member of this channel, thank you so very much. Your super chat is greatly appreciated. New York Times, Trump says Cuba will no longer get oil or money from Venezuela. New York Post, Trump suggests Marco Rubio could soon get another job, president of Cuba. CBC, Trump says no more Venezuelan oil or money to go to Cuba. Cuban Americans in Miami, South Florida, and around the country, and especially in Florida, helped President Trump win a second term. Big time. Big time. And really helped save Florida from the catastrophe that other blue states are experiencing. The Cuban Americans in Florida have done a great thing for this country, and I'm hoping President Trump could do something really amazing. He will go down as one of the greatest presidents in the history of this country. Even with his first term, he was already one of the greatest presidents we've ever had. We had record low poverty with President Trump before Democrats and media and the wonderful experts shut down economic activity. They didn't have to do that. He was framed and set up. He never worked with Russia. No, but there was no substantial interference that even influenced one vote in 2016. Comey wrote a Comey letter days before and tanked Clinton's campaign. The Clinton campaign even wanted, in their own writing, in their own emails, they wanted to elevate Trump. They wanted Trump. There was even a Politico article stating they got the man they always wanted. Then they lost, and then they, of course, created 10 years of temper tantrums, which we still see today. CBS News, Trump tells Cuba to make a deal before it's too late after Maduro ouster. And you have South Florida, NBC 6, no more oil. Trump declares end to oil and financial support for Cuba. If Cuba doesn't get the financial support and the oil from Venezuela, it could very well have the same type of change in government that's taking place in Venezuela. Hopefully, there's no... I do not want bloodshed. I do not want chaos and mayhem. I don't want what took place during President Obama's tenure in Libya and elsewhere, under Biden's tenure with the largest invasion in modern history. Under Biden's tenure, why did that happen? When Democrats, the adults, were in the room. We went back to Trump after 4 years of a failed presidency. The Russians invaded while Democrats were in office in 2022. President Obama destabilized an entire region of the world with the Libya intervention, a NATO intervention that was failed. And then Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld created an era of endless wars. President Trump will likely acquire Greenland, purchase it, which is of huge strategic importance. We've talked about that on this channel. Venezuela will hopefully have a completely different government where the people are wealthier, happier. It's better for Venezuela, better for the United States. And Cuba might no longer be communist. God willing, it changes very soon. According to President Trump, he's like the orange Nostradamus. He's pretty much right about everything. But this is what a modern anti-war president is. He is not a pacifist. There are wonderful, morally superior imbeciles on both sides of the political divide stating, Trump, you can't do this, man. Like, where were you with Bush and Obama and Biden? Where were you? Where were these people? Maybe some of them were around. But President Trump is not engaging in never-ending military conflict, counterinsurgency wars, guerrilla warfare. That I have always been opposed to and I'm against. If we can acquire through relatively peaceful means or through military means without endless wars, through acquisition, purchase, Greenland, that would be amazing. If we can have a different government in Cuba, where the Cuban people, and a different government in Venezuela, where the Venezuelan people benefit, they're wealthier, there's less poverty, less oppression, that's a good thing. But Trump is very different from Bush, Obama, and Biden. And that's what makes him so great. Anyway, let's continue. Check this out. Hit subscribe to this channel. This man is reshaping the world while the usual apoplectic, morally superior, hysterical, manic, educated experts are, completely beside themselves as always. Paul Bartlett to my super chat. Thank you so very much. Thank you, Paul. And to my super chat, thank you. Let's get started.
Totally relies on Venezuela for money and for oil, and they give Venezuela protection. That was always the deal. They're very tough. They're good soldiers. They got wiped out, as you know.
Yeah.
3 days ago, wiped out. I don't want to even say how many, but they got wiped out. But Cuba gives protection to Venezuela, and Venezuela gives Cuba money through oil.
You agree, Senator?
I think the president is exactly right. You look at Cuba, the communist regime there has existed 67 years. For the first number of decades, they existed because the Soviet Union supported them financially. And then America, we won the Cold War and defeated the Soviet Union. Soviet Union collapsed. And Venezuela stepped in as essentially daddy warbucks and began providing them money. And the corrupt trade that has been happening for years is that Cuba provides thugs. They provide military and soldiers who oppress the Venezuelan people. It's the Cubans that Hugo Chavez and Maduro used to oppress the Venezuelan people. And as the president referred, look, Chavez, or Maduro rather, was protected by Cubans. His entire security detail around him were Cuban soldiers, and Delta Force came in and took them all out. It's been publicly reported 32 Cuban guards were killed. As the president referenced there, I've seen reports that it was actually a lot more than 32. And we didn't have a single fatality. I mean, it remains extraordinary.
The president said they came in helicopters and they came down, just like you see in the movies, on these ropes and got him before he could get to a safe room. You know how bad Cuba can be because your dad, he was imprisoned there. He was tortured. He had $100 sewn into his clothes when he came here to America and then graduated from UT. And he's still alive to see all of your success.
He is 86. He's going strong. And I'll tell you, Cuba used to be, it was the biggest sugar producer in Latin America. It was prosperous, and communism destroyed it. Venezuela sees the same journey. I'll tell you an amazing stat. In 1950, do you know that Venezuela had the 4th highest GDP per capita of any country on planet Earth? In 1950, number 1 was the United States. Number 2 was Switzerland. Number 3 was New Zealand, and number 4 was Venezuela. They've got the largest proven oil reserves of any country on earth. They've got the largest gold reserves. And the Hugo Chavez and Nicolas Maduro, 2 communists, came in, utterly destroyed the economy. It's the same thing the Castros did in Cuba. And the Cuban economy is in free fall right now. I think this is the most promising time of our lifetimes to see the communist regime fall. And I'll tell you, if the communist regime falls in Cuba, you will see a lot of Cuban Americans with a lot of resources eager to invest, to go and turn that country around. I think it could be an island paradise if the communists were out of power and free enterprise were allowed to come back.
It just shows you the folly of the Obama administration to prop up with the Castro brother. And instead, the president goes, no, we're not having anything to do with them. So now they can try to get Etzel parts in the future.
So Cuban Americans, like I said, if you look at the numbers and the votes, saved Florida, saved the country, really, because they turned Florida into a very strong red state for President Trump, helped turn along with all the other citizens of Florida. But Latinos, Mexican Americans, Latinos and Hispanic voters around the country, if you look, in 2016, Trump was like 20 points, 25 points below Clinton. And you look at 2024, that's why the Voting Rights Act, Section 2, will be repealed by the Supreme Court. You have a large demographic group that almost voted, Trump almost got the entire Hispanic and Latino vote in 2024. That's why never Trumpers, the good conservatives, the good Republicans, are so clueless. And Trump's rhetoric, sometimes it's crude. But he focuses on the economy, bringing the tariffs are about bringing jobs back. Enforcing immigration laws is about ensuring that people who did it right, who tried to be, who worked to become citizens, had lawyers, did the paperwork, waited in line, all of that thing. enforcing immigration laws makes sure that people, if they want to become citizens from around the world, actually go through the process. And so he does, like, the whole thing is, it's like President Trump stands for a bunch of, very simple concepts, or, a value system that everyone had, even 90s and early 2000s Democrats had President Trump's value system. Enforce immigration laws, be influential on the world stage without never-ending wars. That's what makes President Trump so great. He's able to do this in Venezuela. Hopefully it works out. Because, I read an article, there was armed militias now in Venezuela, but that, who knows the severity. But hopefully it does work out. I do not want chaos and mayhem and the things that took place during the Bush and Obama and Biden years. But if it does work out, and it looks like overall the world map is changing without these never-ending wars, and that President Trump is using economic leverage. Thank God he got us out of 66 and even more than that, international organizations. You don't need these international organizations at all for most things. Okay, we can go on forever, but anyway, let's listen to this. Let's continue.
Is ready to fall after U.S. forces captured the Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro.
Are you considering U.S. action in Cuba?
We're not. I think it's just going to fall. I don't think we need any action. It looks like it's going down. It's going down for the count. You ever watch a fight?
I have.
They go down for the count, and Cuba looks like it's going down.
Senior correspondent Benjamin Hall is live in our New York studio now, joining us.
The morally superior liberals don't get Trump's personality. They just don't get it. They want somebody like, God bless Biden, bless his heart. I'm not going to poke fun at him. Like, you couldn't even understand anything he said. That's why Democrats, after one debate performance, removed him, which is the most outlandish thing. He won his primary, but okay, they don't even have functioning primaries. But Trump's personality, they don't get Trump's personality. They don't get it. They want somebody to lie to them, and we have a consensus around the world that we are going to do what's a consensus, and we're compassionate, and we're beautiful, and we're wonderful, and we're the protagonists in our own play, the morally superior liberal Democratic Party play on the world stage. We're very good people, and we're not mean like Trump. And all you had is geopolitical catastrophe under Biden, unmitigated disaster, where pipelines are being destroyed underwater. And well, who did that? Gee, maybe it's the morally superior liberals. That's not good for the environment. I mean, invasions with Libya, civil conflict that was exacerbated. Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld. Why can't we go back to Bush, a good Republican? The status quo stinks. The status quo stinks. That's why President Trump won. He'd win a third and fourth term. But we have J.D. Vance, God willing, and Rubio coming up. J.D. Vance, Rubio, 28. There's nothing Democrats can do. The only thing they have is Newsom. That's the only thing. That's if they anoint him, because they don't have a functioning primary. So,
Benjamin, great to see you. What message is President Trump sending to Cuba and to the world, really, there?
Well, I think, first of all, we have to look back to the Monroe Doctrine, or as President Trump's calling it, the Donroe Doctrine, which is that if you are in the Southern Hemisphere near the U.S. and you are anti-U.S., you will be targeted. There can be no enemies over here. And the impact and the influence that Cuba had over Venezuela is huge. The Cubans came out yesterday and said that 32 Cubans were killed during the operation that took place the other day because they were Maduro's surrounding close security bodyguards. And some people think that without the Cubans, Maduro would no longer be able to take control. Now, Cuba relies heavily on Venezuela and Venezuelan oil, and it's interesting to see now that the U.S. is quasi in control or has some influence over there. If you shut off oil to Cuba, Cuba will really be affected as well. So he's sending a message that if you are anti-U.S., particularly in the Southern Hemisphere, we will come to get you. We will stop you, because that is the most important part of the world for us.
Yeah, and in the corner of the shot there on board Air Force One, when the president was speaking, you saw Senator Lindsey Graham. He was on a program yesterday with Trey Gowdy, Sunday Night in America, and he's sending a message to the Cubans following Maduro's capture. Listen.
There's no way that the communist dictatorship in Cuba survives after the takedown of Maduro. it is over. It's just a matter of time. To our Cuban friends in Florida and throughout America, the liberation of your homeland is close.
And you've seen the celebrations that have been happening.
So when Democrats were in office and Bush Republicans, the mantra was, we're going to engage in endless wars, allow all these invasions, and make sure that you play ball with America. Trump is, we're just going to deny you oil. And I'm sure people were paid. I'm sure that apparently there are generals in Venezuela that have hundreds of millions, potentially billion-dollar bank accounts. There was probably a deal. I'm just speculating. There's zero evidence on this. But hey, you know what? You won't be indicted the way Maduro is. But if, you let us, arrest him and indict him, you can keep all your money. That type of thing. Who knows? I have no clue, actually. I really don't. I'm just reading the same news reports you are. I'm speculating. But you play ball with the United States under Trump, you get your oil, you get economic, there's an economic benefit. You don't play ball, there's an economic consequence, tariffs. You know what? If your leader, in Maduro's case, is able to be indicted, what Trump does is completely different from what has been going on the past 20 plus years, 25, 26 years on the world stage. That's why he's so brilliant. The smartest people in the room, number one, we have the stupidest, most unintelligent intelligentsia. The intelligentsia of the United States of America and of many countries in Europe as well are completely clueless on so many things. Yet they look in the mirror and they say, I'm morally superior. I'm so morally superior. As you have catastrophe after catastrophe the past 25 years. Under their watch, Trump left and the Russians invaded years later, under Biden's watch, when NATO and Europe and Biden and Democrats and good liberals were happy. Why did that take place? It didn't take place under Trump. And then you say, well, look what happened with Trump's last year. It's like, well, that's not Trump's fault. He was literally stating it was from a lab. And then now 5 years later, oh yeah, it was. Almost everything he says is correct. But the petulant reaction, no, what about this? Like, the reason that the status quo is changing and that Kenneth Waltz, the international relations scholar, one of the most renowned international relations scholars, would have called him, Trump, a system reformer on the world stage. He's reforming a very corrupt system with graft, bribery, non-governmental organizations getting hundreds of millions from things like USAID. And the Democrats, oh my God, we're leaving these organizations. Like, yeah, good. You don't need an organization for every single thing under the sun. You do what's in your best interest, and hopefully logic and reason and diplomacy will dictate that, you know what, it's in everyone's interest to act accordingly, peacefully, and, be in good standing with one another. You don't need a million different organizations. But anyway, let's continue.
Like in places like Doral, Florida, where 40% of the residents there are of Venezuelan descent. This is Rep. Jimenez saying that Cubans and Venezuelans can see the light at the end of the tunnel now. This was at a GOP presser earlier today. Listen.
For once, the Cuban people have been in this tunnel for about 60 years. The Venezuelan people have been in this tunnel for about 25 years. And now I can see both the Venezuelan people and the Cuban people can see a light at the end of that tunnel. And this is the beginning of a process.
Setting a very optimistic tone for the people there.
Yeah, they can see light at the end of the tunnel, that is true, but he's right to say this is a process. This doesn't happen overnight, and I think that President Trump has learned from previous presidents where you don't go in and just try and remove the whole regimes and the whole Cuban regime or the Venezuelan regime. This has to happen slowly. The removal of Maduro is going to go a long way, and that'll impact Cuba in result, but this isn't going to.
And by the way, I wish only the best for the Venezuelan people. And wealth and peace, and Venezuela should be a very wealthy country. Cuba should be a very wealthy country. Cuba should be a very wealthy country. Communism is the worst, the most immoral, unethical, immoral. It's not moral. The leftists, first of all, like if they're whatever platform, this platform on Twitch, whatever, they make $1 million to $2 million a year. A lot of them on preaching about communism and socialism. I mean, they're the greatest capitalists of all time. They're making bank preaching about poverty. Communism is evil because it directly causes poverty. There's never been a communist country that wasn't mired in poverty or eventually collapsed. Okay? Communism is very bad. It never worked. It will never work because of human nature, and it only leads to poverty and inequality. And it's completely immoral, which is hilarious because the wonderful morally superior on the left thinks it's moral. There's not even been one country that has ever worked to help its citizens under communism. Never. It's never existed. Okay? George Orwell wrote, Animal Farm is literally supposed to be against communism. And of course, the wonderful morally superior twist it and mangle it. But anyway, God bless the Venezuelan people. God bless the Cuban people. And I think that President Trump on the world stage, without these never-ending wars, he's doing something that is just, it's unbelievable. Imagine if we didn't have Trump and we had Harris and Waltz. Could you imagine? I mean, could you imagine?
Going to happen overnight. This is going to be over a year or two, and I think that it's going to take a while. But yes, they are saying that there will be economic pressure, there will be sanctions, and if they don't play ball, then eventually there will be further kinetic action.
Speaking of the economic pressure and the message this sends to not only places like Cuba, but all over the world, including Russia and China. What is the message that they should be receiving there from watching this happen?
No, it's the same thing, it is that we will bring justice to those who commit terrible crimes, and if you are anti-America, we will come to hunt you down. Now, Russia and China are really affected by this. Russia relies heavily on Venezuelan oil to a certain degree, and if you shut that off, that's not only going to impact Russia, whose economy is really on its knees, but that influences its ability to wage war in Ukraine. So Russia is looking at this in a really difficult way. They've given about $20 billion or so to Venezuela. That has been lost at this point, so Russia is afraid. China as well takes about 5% of its oil from Venezuela at really discounted prices. And once the U.S. has some say over where Venezuelan oil goes, it controls or has an influence over about half of the oil around the world, if you include Saudi Arabia and other countries where it can have a say. Once you get that power, you reduce prices, you hit the economies in China, Russia. And so, look, this spreads, and it spreads with the message that, look, the U.S. is not going to sit back if you are working against the country. President Trump's going to find a way of coming to find you economically, and as we've seen, perhaps even more.
It's interesting.
It also addresses the issue of immigration. If you have Venezuela or Cuba, or other countries, let's say Venezuela right now, it becomes wealthier. It was per capita GDP ranked fourth, according to Ted Cruz, and it was essentially the fourth wealthiest country in the world in terms of standard of living in the 1950s. How many tremendous natural resources does Venezuela have? How on earth could anyone state that communism is good for any country? Cuba, Venezuela, any country, North Korea. Look what's so if you have all these natural resources and your country is in poverty, there's a problem there. There's a problem. Now, we can go into the case for why communism or socialism 100 years ago existed. Okay, there was zero, perhaps the only case for it is there was a zero social mobility. So when Karl Marx and others created the ideology, you didn't have social mobility. Aside in the U.S. you did, but even in the U.S. it was difficult. But the U.S. is the only country where you could come in poor and then become a millionaire, or have your kids become a millionaire, or doctors or lawyers, or have a better life. In other countries, you couldn't do that. If you were born, there was either a caste system, even in Europe, where you stayed poor your whole life, and then your kids and grandkids, they would stay mired in the same poverty. But things have changed a lot. And so if you have capitalism in Venezuela and Cuba, and you have a government that says, okay, we're going to make sure that the people benefit and the economy benefits, so everyone could be wealthier. Okay, not like what's taking place in New York with Mamdani, which is very amusing. But anyway, let's continue.
Saying it goes back to the point Martha and I were discussing earlier about the economic opportunity that could be unleashed. We just learned that Chris Wright, the energy secretary here at home, is going to be having a meeting with oil industry executives about opportunity in Venezuela, for which they would want to have certain conditions met to do that. But that sort of investment in Venezuela could not only directly impact the global oil market and perhaps lead to lower prices, but give economic opportunity to people in Venezuela to make use of one of their largest naturally occurring resources, and that is oil.
Yeah, 330 billion barrels they've got. They currently use about, or get out about 1 million a day. That's nothing compared to what they can do. And it's interesting to look at the relationship between Venezuela and the US on oil. It was Venezuelan oil that perhaps helped the US win World War II. You look along the southern coast of the US, you've got some of these refineries which deal specifically in the heavy oil that Venezuela produces. Now, they will start up again. You'll get Venezuelan oil to those refineries. That's big and big, both for the Venezuelan people, who, by the way, I was in Venezuela 25 years ago, and it was a country booming. It was beautiful. It was full of music and life. 25 years of this government of Chavista and the Maduro has seen that country plummet. That's what socialism and Marxist-Leninism, which they follow, does to a country. So yes, great opportunity in Venezuela, great opportunity around the world, great opportunity for oil companies.
I'm not going to list the publication, but it's a left-leaning publication. I think they come out with something either monthly or 4 times a year, whatever, 3 times a year. But it's like $10 to $15. Okay, it's you can see it if you're at Barnes and Noble or the last time. I don't even know if it's in print anymore, but it's like a left wing, pro-communist, pro-socialist. It's a magazine selling for like $15. Okay, it's like you're pushing communism and socialism. You're selling the publication for $15 per copy. Are you kidding?
That the oil prices will come down, so oil companies won't be so pleased, but the people of America will be pleased. But that's not going to happen overnight. This is going to be over a few years while they gear the process up and get the oil coming out.
Politically, and to your point, economically, because it's easier for the spigot to be turned off rather quickly, but to get all of that up and running to make use of those resources takes quite some time. But there are U.S. companies that are saying it is worth the investment. We'll see what happens. President Trump, meanwhile, says Cuba is ready to fall after U.S. forces captured the Venezuelan leader, Nicolas Maduro.
And you think about it, like how quick that had to happen. There could only be speculation how quick that took place. And so it's only speculation, but it's like how did that happen so quickly? Like how many people around Maduro had to be bribed or have a deal made with the United States of America, like long before, like weeks or months. I'm just pure speculation.
Are you considering U.S. action in Cuba?
We're not. I think it's just going to fall. I don't think we need any action. It looks like it's going down. It's going down for the count. You ever watch a fight?
I have.
They go down for the count, and Cuba looks like it's going down.
Senior correspondent Benjamin Hall is live in our New York studio now, joining us. Benjamin, great to see you. What message is President Trump sending?
We actually just saw that. Okay. Right here.
Right now, Venezuela dictator Nicolas Maduro and his wife remain in New York City prison, indicted on narco-terrorism charges.
All right, it follows a daring capture by U.S. Special Forces that was months in the making, involving CIA intel on the ground in Venezuela for months, and ultimately carried out by Delta Special Forces.
GOP Senator Rick Scott sits on the Foreign Relations and Armed Services Committee, joining us now. And Senator,
and it's so important that Maduro was alive, because you can have a trial and you could find out, how much money that he stole from Venezuela, or potentially, allegedly. Okay, we'll just say allegedly before the trial. But he had to have been alive. That's very, 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 very important.
It's worth noting that you have led on calls for removing Maduro for years before any other politician was really talking about it. As best I can remember, you were in Miami with Venezuelan Americans yesterday. Tell us this morning your thoughts.
Well, when I got the call yesterday morning at 4:30 in the morning from Marco Rubio, I was excited. This has been a lot of work by a lot of people to keep the issue alive and make sure everybody understands exactly who Maduro was, an evil drug trafficker that destroyed the lives of so many Venezuelans and so many Americans. So my heart goes out to everybody that's put their effort into this. I want to thank President Trump, Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth for what an unbelievable operation this was, that had the guts to do it, because so many people didn't have the guts to do this. I want to thank and big shout out to Maria Corina Machado. This lady has put her life on the line for years. Maduro wanted to kill her, and she fought and fought and fought. And so now it's, we've got to bring it to a transition till we get liberty and freedom. I'm confident that Marco Rubio's got a plan. We talked about it. It's not going to be easy. There's a lot of bad people that are in power down there still. But I believe good will prevail, and we will get freedom and liberty and for the Venezuelans.
Can I just follow up on that? Does that involve the Vice President, Delcy Rodriguez? Because she obviously seemed to be on board at the press conference, what we learned from the president, but then yet yesterday she spent the afternoon on social media condemning the attack, demanding Maduro be freed.
I can't imagine that anybody that's part of the inner circle of Maduro will be in power. They had an election. Maduro's not the president of Venezuela. They had an election. Armando Gonzalez won. Maria Corina Machado would have won, but Maduro wouldn't let her on the ballot. I'm optimistic. I don't think it's going to be easy. There's been a lot of bad people. These cartels have destroyed this country. So there's a lot of bad people still around in Venezuela. It's going to take a lot of work. But I can tell you what, the Venezuelan people, they want change. They voted for change. And I think there's a lot of wonderful Venezuelans that want to go home and rebuild this great country. I was there before Chavez, and it's a beautiful place with wonderful people, and they have so much in natural resources. So I'm very optimistic that we're going to have another great ally that's got a lot of natural resources and will have a lot of success.
So this will obviously have a lot of a domino effect in the neighborhood down there. President Trump and Secretary Rubio talked about the possibilities for Cuba. Let's play this clip real quick.
Cuba is going to be something we'll end up talking about, because Cuba is a failing nation right now, very badly failing nation. And we want to help the people of, it's very similar in the sense that we want to help the people in Cuba.
When the president speaks, you should take him seriously. Suffice it to say, Cuba is a disaster. It's run by incompetent, senile men. If I lived in Havana and I was in the government, I'd be concerned.
What is Cuba thinking right now?
Could you imagine Marco Rubio as vice president visiting Cuba with a completely new government that focuses on alleviating poverty, making the country more wealthy, making the country friendly to an ally, let's say, of the United States of America? Same with Venezuela. And so Democrats want to reimagine everything. Everything must be reimagined. Movies, stories, everything. But except the world, except the map of the world. They can only reimagine the map with endless wars, counterinsurgency conflicts, terrible, terrible quagmires that Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld started, Tony Blair, others. Okay. And you look at what took place with President Obama in Libya and elsewhere, and then you look at the invasion under Biden. These are foreign policy catastrophes, absolute unmitigated disasters. And President Trump, in his it's just after his first year in office, Venezuela could be eventually an ally, Cuba could be eventually an ally, and then we might get Greenland. We might just purchase Greenland. I mean, that on the world stage alleviates so many national security risks. Without all the major wars and terrible, terrible quagmires that others, the adults in the room, caused. And so Democrats and never Trump Republicans, and they govern with, they look at everything from their sensibility lenses defined by their sensibilities. Oh, well, Trump. Oh, look at Trump. Oh, could you be with Trump? It's like, you know what? You know what? He has charisma, and he's hilarious a lot of times, and he sometimes has hyperbolic statements, but he has vision. His vision makes the country safer and better. The vision of the good, sensible, rational, good liberals and the true conservatives has led to unmitigated catastrophes. Bush, Cheney, Rumsfeld's quagmires, Obama in Libya, Biden with the invasion taking place under him. There's zero rebuttal to any of this. So with Trump, I hope Venezuela, it works out, and you know what? That it becomes an ally, and the people are prosperous, and the people are happy. Cuba becoming an ally and also a wealthy country again, it would be amazing. And Greenland, we have to purchase Greenland, give them anything they want, 100 grand per citizen of Greenland, and then pay off Denmark's national debt, 140 billion. That's like 1 year in Minnesota with Walz, or whatever. You could take all the billions in fraud from blue states. You could buy Greenland, or actually you could pay off the Danish national debt. Give them anything they want, anything they want. It would never be done with military. We give them a purchase price. They say, oh, you know what? Fine, take it. But anyway, let's continue.
We're going to see freedom and liberty in Cuba. I mean, Cuba is a failed state. The people of Cuba do not like Diaz-Canel. They don't like their government. It's all propped up with the oil from Venezuela. So Cuba's been the root of evil. So if you look at this, is an unbelievable opportunity. When Trump finishes this term, I think all across Latin America we're going to see freedom and liberty. We're going to have a new president in Colombia next year. And I think the right thing will happen there. I think Diaz-Canel will be gone. So I'm excited for all my friends that have fought all these years for freedom and liberty, and they have not been able to get a president that would show up and do the job that needed to be done. And this president has been willing to do it. So hats off to Donald Trump.
Senator,
by the way, Elon Musk is given free internet now in Venezuela. That's going to help people be able to talk to each other. That's a big deal. So I want to thank Elon Musk for doing that too.
Perhaps that's part of my question as well, looking at oil at the center of all of this and the added internet situation for the people of that country as a result. What do you believe will be the overall economic impact of this action on the part of the administration?
Well, I think what's going to happen is you're going to see oil prices come down. They've got all the unbelievable reserves in Venezuela. The oil companies are going to come back. They're going to rebuild this country. It's going to be great opportunities for Venezuelans. Venezuelans should be the richest country in South America. Absolutely, no question. Should be the richest.
Venezuela should be one of the wealthiest countries in the world. You have that much you have that much oil. My God. That's like God giving a country, here, be wealthy. Here, God says, this is yours, all this oil. Venezuela should be very wealthy, and Cuba should too.
Richest country in South America is going to create a lot of opportunity for Venezuelans. It's going to be exciting. I think there's so many. My friends Venezuelans are going to want to go home and rebuild this country. It's going to be it's an exciting day.
Wow.
It'll be good for America.
Senator, thank you so much.
And now Greenland. Give them anything, just a blank check. Here, Denmark, here's a blank check, whatever you want.
Part of that stabilization, and the reason why we understand and believe that we have the strongest leverage possible, is our quarantine. As you've seen today, 2 more ships were seized. We are in the midst right now, and in fact about to execute on a deal to take all the oil. They have oil that is stuck in Venezuela. They can't move it because of our quarantine and because it's sanctioned. We are going to take between 30 and 50 million barrels of oil. We're going to sell it in the marketplace at market rates, not at the discounts Venezuela was getting. That money will then be handled in such a way that we will control how it is dispersed in a way that benefits the Venezuelan people, not corruption, not the regime.
That's Secretary of State Marco Rubio outlining President Trump.
Then you have Democrats. This is a completely crazy scheme by Trump. I mean, what? It's like Biden offered a $25 million reward. I think it was $25 million for the arrest of Maduro. Joe Biden, Actually, God bless him, not to be rude or mean, but probably he didn't even know about it. It was the people around him issued. So Biden's, handlers or staff or White House issued a $25 million reward. So as always, no good deed goes unpunished. Trump literally arrests the man that Biden had a $25 million reward for. And of course, Democrats don't like it because it's not the status quo. And it's actually, makes us safer on the world stage here. Biden raises bounty for Nicolas Maduro to $25 million, January 10th, 2025, New York Times. The Biden administration said on Friday that it was offering $25 million for information leading to the arrest of Nicolas Maduro. What did they think? What did Democrats think was going to happen? He would just be arrested in Venezuela? So Trump literally did what Biden kind of sort of wanted to do. And of course, it's absolutely terrible. BBC, U.S. announces $25 million reward for Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro. Okay. On January 10th, 2025, the Biden-Harris administration put a $25 million reward on Nicolas Maduro. Okay. So, yet again, Democrats state that they want to do something, and Trump does it, and they can't stand it.
Trump's plan to sell Venezuelan oil. The president secured between 30 and 50 million barrels of oil from Venezuela to America. President Trump posted this on Truth Social, saying Venezuela is going to be purchasing only American-made products with the money that they receive from our new oil deal. These purchases will include, among other things, American agricultural products, American-made medicines, medical devices, and equipment. U.S. forces also seized 2 additional oil tankers yesterday, one in the Caribbean, the other in the North Atlantic. Joining me now live from Brussels is the U.S. ambassador to NATO, Matthew Whitaker. Ambassador, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. Your reaction to what's underway here and the reaction that we're seeing from the world to the president's moves in Venezuela.
Well, good morning and Happy New Year. It's good to see you. First of all, the president demonstrates unique American capabilities that nobody else in the world can exercise, and that whether that is what happened in Caracas last weekend, whether that is the interdiction of these vessels on the high seas, and so many other ways that the United States of America is the unmatched world superpower. Now, saying that is, he has emphasized how the first priority of this foreign policy is the Western Hemisphere, to keep our place where we live safe and secure and for our people. And I think this deal that's now taking shape, where we're going to take the oil that is sanctioned, that cannot be sold otherwise, and use it for the benefit of the people of Venezuela, I think is a brilliant idea. Obviously, buying America products enhances our business and our industry. And it's a win-win. And it's, most importantly, it's a win for the people that have long suffered in Venezuela.
Well, look, I always say I love and very much appreciate the president's priority of national security and ensuring that America is safe. And he's doing so on so many levels.
So this is pure national security. If you studied international relations prior to like 2015 or 2014, who knows when academia became a very bizarre universe or realm. But if you studied international relations like 20 years ago or before, you realize this is all national security. The DNC emails are not national security. No. The FBI never even saw the DNC computer servers. That's number one. Number two, even Comey admitted to that. Number two, the DNC emails were literally written by Democrats themselves. So the whole world saw how corrupt they were. This is before they kicked Biden out of contention after he won his primary. They don't even have functioning primaries. So, and they're like, oh my God, a hostile foreign country trying to interfere in our... You lost miserably because the Clinton campaign had top secret intelligence on servers. Classified data being forwarded from Anthony Weiner's computer. No, Uma Abedin's computer to Anthony Weiner. That's what he testified. That's why Comey wrote the Comey letter. Had nothing to do with interference from another country. Not one vote was altered by a Facebook ad or Twitter bot. And when the DNC emails were being released by the New York Times and BBC and The Guardian and Washington Post and everybody else, okay, Democrats at that moment in time, I remember it like it was yesterday. I'm like a hologram from 2016. They were giddy, laughing. That's all you got? That's all you have? Oh, fall in line. They didn't even care even one bit. That's why everybody was crying at the Jacob Javits Center. The entire political world collapsed. And then they said, oh, the Russians, it's national security. Oh, it wasn't national security. They even wanted Trump. They elevated Trump in their own emails. They wanted President Trump. Politico wrote an article. They got the man they always wanted. The entire thing was a hoax. They even wanted to elevate Trump. How could the Russians and the DNC want to elevate Trump at the same time? So the whole thing was fabricated. But to them, it's national security. They're cold warriors, don't you know? It's like Dungeons and Dragons for morally superior liberals. They create and fabricate these absurd national security objectives. We have to make sure that other countries don't interfere. Well, you stink. That's why you lost. Why don't you fix your political party? Oh, you got Biden for 4 years. Well, now Jimmy Carter is like George Washington compared to Biden. Now they're going to have, God willing, Trump, then Vance, 8 years, then Rubio, 8 years. So, maybe AOC or Bernie will win 30, 40 years from now. But anyway, this is pure national security. This is exactly what you would study, 20, 30 years ago.
From securing the border to ensuring we are making the weapons that we need in a timely fashion to ensuring that we've got the supply chains in America while also reining in domestic issues like inflation. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is set to meet with Danish officials next week to discuss the possibility of an acquisition of Greenland. Watch this.
The U.S. intend to buy Greenland. Can you clarify your comments to lawmakers this week?
Well, that's always been the president's intent from the very beginning. He said it very early on. I mean, this is not new. He talked about it in his first term, and he's not the first U.S. president that has examined or looked at how could we acquire Greenland. There's an interest there.
And again, this is about national security. President Trump says that acquiring Greenland is for national security purposes to deter Russia and China out of the Arctic region. Here's the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, yesterday.
The president has been very open and clear with all of you and with the world that he views it in the best interest of the United States to deter Russian and Chinese aggression in the Arctic region. And so that's why his team is currently talking about what a potential purchase would look like.
So what would that look like, Ambassador? I know that the White House is talking about a monetary acquisition, but also when asked about it, they did not rule out using the military as well.
Yeah, well, first,
it will never be military. It will only be a purchase.
How will NATO respond to this?
Yeah. Well, it's I've spent a few minutes this week talking to a lot of our allies on these topics. Arctic security in the high north is crucial to what we do. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization is intended to protect the entire North Atlantic region. That includes Greenland, includes the United States, and includes Europe, and includes Canada, all with interests in the high north. But let's talk about how Greenland is pivotal to the security of North America and the United States. First, you have the Greenland, Iceland, UK gap, where once submarines from adversaries get into and past that, that's of real concern for the homeland. And that's where Greenland plays a very important role in monitoring that activity. And second, as the ice recedes and we do have, some thawing and passageways open up in the Arctic, obviously the approaches to the United States and North America are more dangerous. And Greenland, again, continues to play an important role in the monitoring and defense of that. So, you can see why the president has identified this as a crucial issue for the security of the American people And it's why, he's taking a all the above approach in how he's doing this. And now that Secretary Rubio is involved in negotiating that with Denmark, the security of Greenland and therefore the security of the United States is going to be paramount and on the front page for a lot of us who worry about defending the homeland.
So did you get a sense of timing in terms of when the president would make an offer, a monetary offer to acquire Greenland, and what NATO members think about it?
Well, I mean, obviously there were some NATO members that early this week spoke out, and so they say how they feel about it. And certainly, I'm not going to get ahead of the president on any offer or any negotiation strategy. But I do know with Secretary Rubio meeting with the Danes next week, I think that's a good first step. Obviously, that process is going to be crucial. What we need to do right now here at NATO is take the temperature of this issue down and work on what we can control, and that is the security of the Arctic region. Canada needs to be at the table. The United States obviously needs to be at the table. Denmark and all of the Nordic allies that have interest. Because if you look, and when I was getting confirmed, Maria, I used to walk around with a map of the world from the North Pole. And it's a much different perspective, but it shows you the significant vulnerabilities of North America from that approach.
So, purchase of Greenland is national security. Protecting the DNC from, other countries, that's something the DNC would have to do. That's not necessarily national security. The notion that Democrats only lost because Russia was so afraid of them, while the Russians invaded while they were in office, which points to the hoax being completely irrational. That's DNC emails were never national security, for example. Okay. Controlling our borders is national. Democrats don't think that's national security. The problem, however, is that American politics used to be both left and right, or Democrats, Republicans, up until the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. How do we get to a certain destination? We have different ideas. Okay, but we want the same destination. Strength, prosperity. Now the destinations are completely different. Now Democrats don't even want to get to the same destination as Trump Republicans. They don't care about global security on the world stage. They don't care about making sure that you have secure borders. It's not even, those are our national, they don't care about tariffs and stopping the flow of illegal narcotics, addressing outsourcing the root causes of poverty. Outsourcing is one of the root causes of poverty. You're literally sending jobs to other countries. They don't care about that. You can go into what they care about. It's like a bunch of ideological fascinations or obsessions. But now they don't even see national security in the same way. They don't see morality in the same way. If you disagree with them, it's immoral. They've convinced themselves that they're not the baddies, which on many topics they are. But anyway, let's continue. Hit subscribe if you're new.
Journal just reporting exclusively this evening that Secretary of State Marco Rubio told lawmakers in a closed-door discussion that President
Bogdan, thank you so very, very much. Thank you for watching for so many years. I hope all is well. Thank you so very much. Bogdan, thank you so very, very much. Greatly appreciated. So glad that you've been watching for so many years. Happy New Year. Happy New Year, my friend. Have a great year. Thank you again, as always. Bogdan, thank you.
President Trump wants to buy Greenland and that military action is not imminent.
Joining us now is House Intelligence Committee member, Florida Congressman Greg Steube. Congressman, great to see you. I just want to go right to you with that exclusive from the Wall Street Journal. Secretary Rubio saying the goal here is to buy Greenland, to make a deal, not invade it. You're a lawmaker. What are you hearing? What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, you're exactly right. This is something that would be diplomatic. And the Greenland Prime Minister of Denmark had stated that they're open to allowing the military personnel to open some more bases. I think the real concern is having China and Russia influence there as well. Strategically, if you look at a map from a global perspective, Greenland is a very strategic place for us to have assets to be able to defend ourselves against some type of attack. And the president and the administration is very right to focus on that. But I think you're correct. A diplomatic solution there. The secretary has talked about a diplomatic solution there, either purchasing or working out some type of agreement where Russia and China is not allowed to operate on Greenland, but we are allowed to operate our bases in the way that we see fit.
Again, it's an issue of focusing on the security need, the reasonableness of this maneuver, Congressman, rather than the way President Trump sometimes chooses to express himself. I don't understand. The Democrats have to know that, but they just choose to get upset at the way President Trump speaks sometimes because that makes it easy for them because they don't have to think.
Right, and it gives them some opportunity to go to the mainstream media and the fake news to be able to say whatever item they're wanting to talk about, and then it gets blown up as to some big issue, and then it's mischaracterized, like we saw the Russia collusion hoax go on for years. So that's obviously out of the Democratic playbook. The secretary has made it clear that they're trying to diplomatically establish a foothold there from a safety and security standpoint. It is vital for our country to have some type of security there and to have some type of relationship with Greenland there. And I think that's the goal moving forward. And I think it'd be very beneficial for Denmark to work with us on that and exclude bad actors like China and Russia from having access to Greenland.
You know, do you think Denmark will, Congressman? I'm reading a lot about how, you know, they're warning of the end of NATO.
Give them anything they want. Give them a blank check. That would be amazing to get Greenland for a number of reasons. A lot more important in terms of national security than like, you know, the things Democrats have obsessed over the past 10 years.
Right, and Europe's in a tizzy. Do you think Denmark will want to find a way to play ball in this?
Well, I mean, one of the quotes I saw from the prime minister was that they were willing to work with the United States as it relates to having more assets and bases on Greenland, which I think is a good step in the right direction. I mean, ultimately, it is a very strategic place for us. It is very close to the United States geographically, and it's something that obviously the president and our administration is very interested in having some type of safety and security protection there, which I would think that they would understand. And I would think that there would be some type of deal that can be worked out. If anybody can do it, President Trump can do it.
We've got the world's largest gold reserves, which are increasing in value. We've got some assets to throw around these days. Congressman, so President Trump this morning addressed the members of the House GOP. I watched, I would say the majority.
Rebecca Heinrich joins me now. Look, Rebecca, will you please take me forward to the White House meeting between Trump and Petro? My guess is that our president will tell him, knock off the drugs or else. What do you think?
Terry groups. Well, it certainly could be, and that is something that I think that the U.S. officials continue to leave on the table. And every single head of all of these governments has to be nervous, as you said. Nothing sobers you up more than seeing those images of Nicolas Maduro being pulled out of his home in his pajamas when just hours earlier, Stuart, he was in a suit having discussions with Chinese Communist Party officials about China's support for his regime. And so knowing that the United States can reach in and extract Maduro like that has to have all of these heads of these narco states very uncomfortable.
Next one, Secretary of State Marco Rubio. He has set a date to meet with his Danish counterpart. They're going to discuss U.S. intentions in Greenland. Watch this.
The U.S. intend to buy Greenland. Can you clarify your comments to lawmakers this week?
Well, that's always been the president's intent from the very beginning. He said it very early on. I mean, this is not new. He talked about it in his first term, and he's not the first U.S. president that has examined or looked at how could we acquire Greenland. There's an interest there.
Rebecca, is Greenland that important to future development in the Arctic?
Stuart, it's vital. It's vital for American security. And this is something that many presidents have looked at, especially as that ice melts. You have the Northwest Passage. This is all about shipping lanes. We do not want the Chinese and the Russians having strategic positioning in the Arctic because of shipping lanes and because there's so much military activity up there. We don't want them having such easy access, obviously, to the United States. And there's submarines up there, Russian submarines and Chinese as well, or Russian submarines. I will just say, though, Stuart, Greenland is still a great ally for the United States. We have full access to Greenland, so I'm completely opposed to the U.S. government threatening military force or keeping it on the table, because Greenlanders and Denmark have been very willing to cooperate with the United States. And if we
Denmark is a very strong ally, beautiful country, beautiful history. And if we pay $100,000 per Greenlander, and if we, let's say, the Denmark's national debt is 140 billion. I looked it up. We could pay it off with just the graft and bribery with Democrats in blue states. I mean, and then they're like, well, what about the Republicans? Like, why would I care if a Republican is indicted for graft, bribery, or fraud like Tim Walz? What do I care? I'm an American first, then I'm an independent. I'm not aligned with any political party, or even like I'm more conservative on most things, but I don't have to be, like rationality and logic are more important to me than any allegiance to an ideology or political party. So what do I care? Because their rebuttal to Tim Walz was, well, there's corruption in Mississippi. Good. Why don't you have Democrats investigate that corruption? Very simple. Have a left-leaning Nick Shirley go and get investigating the corruption. The only equivalent of Nick Shirley on the left is, we're at this protest and people are upset. That's it. No investigative journalism. These are really upset people. And they were here with the other day protesting something different. That's it. But anyway, let's continue.
Do need to put more military presence there, which I think we do. There's perfectly good avenues to do that diplomatically.
I call this a new and more aggressive foreign policy from our president. Venezuela, Colombia, Nicaragua, maybe, Cuba, Iran, Greenland to some degree. This is a new policy, isn't it? I mean, it's really drawing the line. It's such a contrast with Biden's era.
Well, not just Biden. I mean, you could go back even further than that. My constant criticism of U.S. policy really since the Cold War, Stuart, has been that we're a superpower that doesn't really use it much. We do not defend our interests very strongly. We do not exercise our military strength in a way that would be compelling to demonstrate not just our military capability, but our military competence, our ability to execute this. Nobody is better at carrying out military operations than the American military forces. And so I think that, yes, President Trump is Jacksonian in his sort of style, in that he will quickly go in, use military force when necessary if we have clear and scoped military objectives that he believes are achievable. So we are in an era in which I think you're going to see a lot more flexing. And you noticed in your last segment, Stuart, the point about President Trump announcing we're going to increase defense spending.
So I agree with a lot of that. I am against never-ending counterinsurgency conflicts, guerrilla warfare, what Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld got us into, what President Obama in Libya with that failed intervention, the chaos, the mayhem, the power vacuums. I'm also against going into countries with different sectarian factions, civil wars raging, different religions and different tribalism. We have tribalism here. It's been manufactured the past 10 years. Oh, you voted Trump, I can't be your friend anymore. That type of manufactured tribalism. But I'm talking about centuries and like ancient hatreds or rivalries. What happened with Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld and the never Trump Republicans that President Trump, thank God, completely politically obliterated, is that we sent Americans to never-ending military conflict. We had learned a lesson from the Vietnam War. And, God bless the Vietnam veterans watching, Vietnamese American community. God bless you if you're watching, anybody watching. But the Vietnam War, we had learned after that, Reagan did not, even Bill Clinton, I got to give it up to Bill after all the, endless critique. Oh, thank you so much. Finally, you said something nice about me. I'm not going to bring up the Oval Office or foundation or anything like that. At least with 8 years of Clinton, 8 years of Reagan. With Herbert Walker, you had Desert Storm, but that was quick, decisive military, dominant military endeavor. And it wasn't enforcing a regime change during a civil war among multiple factions that are going after each other. But you have 8 years of Reagan, 8 years of Bill Clinton. That entire era after Vietnam, we had learned you cannot have a never-ending counterinsurgency war and conflict. This is a terrible thing because every advantage you have, the Soviets learned before we did in Afghanistan. The French learned before we did in Vietnam. And so you cannot have a protracted, long, endless military quagmire in a counterinsurgency war. It's a very, very dangerous, terrible thing, and even the greatest power will lose. Like Afghanistan lost, the Soviets lost in Afghanistan, and then we did the same things. Bush, Cheney, Rumsfeld started an era of endless wars, counterinsurgency conflicts. President Obama continued the regime change with military force in a region that is completely chaotic. And then Biden's tenure, we had an invasion under his watch. Why did the Russians invade when Democrats were in office? Well, I mean, it's pretty obvious. That's a rhetorical question. Okay. Every single thing, every major policy or talking point that you've heard being yelled and screamed and, blasted through a megaphone by Democrats, they're always wrong on almost everything. They're always wrong on the grandiose issues. Shut down state economies. The experts said so. And that was pretty terrible. Caused debt, ruined lives, caused homelessness, abuse of narcotics. We can go on forever. Homicides, and everything. But anyway, hit subscribe, crime. Hit subscribe to this channel. Be here tonight at around 10:30 for the next live stream. Go to H.A. Goodman's other channel right after this.